Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And I am still very sick, if you can't tell by the sound of my voice. I'm all congested and such. It's that time of the year, the weather's changing. Well, it was 40 degrees 2 days ago, and now it's, 85 outside right now, so you gotta love that Louisiana weather. So since the weather's changing, my immune system has decided to, murder me. So I'm sorry if I sound a little off in this video and probably the next couple of videos, but that is unfortunately what's going on. But anyway, today I wanted to talk about a ship that, there's a pretty good chance you are either going to pick up this ship in the Santa Container event, or you probably already have picked up this ship in this year's Santa Container event, because she was released quite a few years ago. She wasn't that overly popular upon her release, and she kind of just faded out from there. But I think this ship is a very good ship, and is easily in, and she's been in a couple of sleeper ship lists in the past, easily amongst my favorite sleeper ships, and that is the Tier 7 Premium Japanese battleship, the Hyuga. Now, why do I consider this thing to be a sleeper? Well, because like I said, she's not really that popular. You don't really run into too many of her in-game. And for example, I was playing for about 2 hours to get some background footage for you guys, and I didn't run across a single other Hyuga. And, she is a Tier 7 battleship, and I play mostly Tier 8s, Tier 9s, and Tier 10s, and there's plenty of Tier 7 ships in that bracket, and I really don't see too much of this ship, at least over here on NA. Maybe on EU or the Asia server, it's a little bit different, but over here you don't really see too many Hyugas out and about. So, what is a Hyuga in the first place? Well, this is an Issei class battleship. Now, you've probably seen the Issei in more than a few matches. That's the hybrid version of this ship. In real life, the Issei and the Hyuga were both converted into what we know as the Issei in game. The Hyuga is the unmolested version of the Issei in her true battleship form. She is a very old ship. She's a World War One, interwar era battleship. I think it's actually a World War One era battleship, armed with 12 14-inch guns. That's pretty good. And what makes the Hyuga really solid, a huge part of what makes her a really solid Tier 7 battleship, in my opinion, is that these 12 14-inch guns have improved accuracy over just about every other Tier 7 battleship. As I'm sure most of you guys are aware, Tier 7 battleships aren't all that accurate in the first place. And hell, even like Tier 8 battleships, they're still throwing you for a loop every now and then. But Tier 7 battleships, you're still missing most of your shots, right? Because of the dispersion. But the Hyuga, not so much. She has one sigma value of 1.8, and her maximum horizontal dispersion is only 170 meters. That is really not bad at all. Now, on top of that, you get a reload booster for your main battery guns. Out of freaking nowhere, Wargaming gave the Hyuga a reload booster, main battery reload booster. Now, we've had Japanese destroyers and even some Japanese battleships with a torpedo reload booster, but a main battery reload booster. Huh. And it's pretty nice, because you have these accurate 14-inch guns, which already have a base reload time of 29 seconds, with improved accuracy, mind you. So then when you throw a reload booster on top of that, you can get, 24 shells on target within 30 seconds? That's a lot of shells. Even though the AP on the ship isn't really that great, the AP is, it is truly something. I find that it's pretty workable from like 13-ish kilometers in. But outside of 13 kilometers with the AP, I believe it's the shell that they use. I believe it uses like a World War One era shell. It's not that great at range, so you'll be getting a lot of bounces or non-pins, and that's kind of not ideal. But what is pretty solid is surprisingly her HE shells. You have a 25% fire chance per shell, with again firing 12 shells every salvo. That's pretty solid. And then keep in mind, with the improved accuracy, you'll be getting more shells on target than you typically would with your, again, run-of-the-mill Tier 7 battleship. So, with these HE shells, you're able to hang in there a hell of a lot better than most Tier 7 battleships can. You know, you can think of it, I won't say it put it fully in like the King George V HE spamming camp, but it can very much, again, keep up thanks to the HE shell performance. Keep in mind, too, that you still have that main battery reload booster. So what you can do with the Hyuga, what I typically do with the Hyuga, especially when you get stuck in high-tier games, is, well, you kind of just spam HE at longer ranges, and when those ships put out their fires, well, you pop that reload booster, and you get another 24 shells headed their way. And if you know how to aim, you'll probably be setting a fire or two with that HE chance and with the amount of shells that you're throwing at the target, so you're doing pretty consistent damage through the shell pins, because mind you, again, there are 14-inch shells. So with, them being 14-inch shells, you're pinning 59 millimeters of armor with those shells. So there's not really a whole lot, even at like tier 9, that can tank your HE. And on top of that, you're probably setting a few fires along the way. Now, once you get close enough into the target, or if the target is something like a cruiser that's being goofy and showing you broadside, you can fire your broadside, again with improved accuracy. Most of the shells are going to be hitting, right? And then pop that reload booster and then get another broadside coming their way. And that means most higher tier cruisers just tend to explode when you catch them broadside. So that's great. Now, even though all of this is pretty solid on the Hyuga, admittedly, her hull is a bit of a letdown. She's very squishy. She's not, I don't want to say she's slow, but she's not really overly fast. She tops out with the speed flag, at least, when you are going in a perfectly straight line around 26, 27 knots. Obviously, if you want to put brisk on there, you can, and you'll get her going a little bit faster, but 26 knots with a speed flag. It's 25.3.2 knots base, I believe. So that's not overly fast by tier 7, but admittedly isn't overly slow either. But it's definitely not enough to really run away when you are in higher tier games. That much is true. And her hull, it's a pretty similar story to like the Fuso. It's, again, fairly squishy, and especially when, you'll find yourself in a lot of tier 9 games because it is a tier 7 ship. There's a lot that can overmatch you. But given that you do have base, a 20.3 kilometer main battery gun range, that's pretty solid for, a tier 7 battleship to have base. Unfortunately, you do not get a spotter, so you can't get that out any further. But again, 20 kilometers isn't really bad by tier 7 standards, again, with how accurate these guns are. So, if the hull isn't that great, why is the Hyuga, in my opinion, a sleeper? Because, well, it's one of the few tier 7 battleships that can really still do something when it gets double up tiered. A lot of times, and I'm biased toward this, obviously, because I'm a battleship main, right? Battleship mains, in my opinion, are one of the worst classes to get up tiered in, because everyone can see you. Your guns can't hit jack. Typically, if you're getting double up tiered, you're like a tier 6 or tier 7 battleship. By comparison, your guns can't hit jack. Your armor's probably not good enough to really protect you, but just good enough to arm all the shells, and you're probably not fast enough to really do what you need to do. The Hyuga, with her guns, you are accurate enough to still get shells on target, and with the HE, it's nice enough to where you can still get those fire started, get those HE shells on target with the good accuracy and such, so you're still able to do damage at higher tier. Now, the game in the background that you've been watching, as you've probably noticed, it ain't that great of a match. Our team's getting rolled. For some reason, 3 ships out in the east cannot sink a single Missouri. And at the same time, our destroyers don't really feel like taking the buffs or getting anywhere near the cap, except for when they want to run down a submarine. Oh, and it's a submarine and a CV game, and it's a tier 9 game, and I'm in a tier 7 battleship. So, it's not a great game at all. It's incredibly one-sided against CV and sub game, and you'll see at the end of the match, myself and the Hyuga, because of her good accuracy, her pretty solid HE, and that reload booster. Well, admittedly, I don't get to use the reload booster too much in this round because I didn't really have the chance to do it. We're still able to put in a pretty good performance and come at the top of the team at the end of the round. Now, granted, again, with a team like this, not that hard to do, right? But it was still able to do it. It's still able to do something in a double up-tiered tier 7 game. Right, well, tier 9 game, tier 7 ship being in a tier 9 game, right? That's pretty good in my opinion. Now, you can go and apply this when the ship is either mid-tier or top tier. You can imagine, yeah, it's a really solid, really good ship in those situations when it's not getting double up tiered and there's not again a CV and a submarine involved in the match. It's a really solid, really nice ship all the way around. And since this is a tier 7 premium ship, when you are in a double up tiered game and she's able to do, this good, consistent performance, you are making quite a bit of credits because she is a tier 7 ship doing damage to tier 9 ships, which you get a bit of a boost in your base earnings for. And she's a premium ship on top of all that, so she's making a decent bit of money and XP along the way. Now, am I saying this is like, the best thing since sliced bread and she's this amazing credit printer? No. What I am saying is that she gets overlooked a lot, and she really shouldn't in my opinion. If you have managed to acquire her from a Santa container, you got a really nice ship here on your hands that, yeah, it's a little squishy, but the guns are really nice. Use that reload booster when you can for when, those players use their damage con or they slip up, show you broadside, because, yeah, 14-inch guns, not overly massive guns, but 24 of them going into your side, that's going to hurt something, right? That's going to break something on the enemy's ship. So don't underestimate the Hyuga. If you got in a Santa container event, she's really solid. You can pick her up right now in the armory for the average cost of a tier 7 premium ship, which is, I think, that's 35, 32 US dollars, right? So pretty good deal in my opinion, especially if you're a fan of Japanese battleships. And if you're a fan of Japanese battleships, I mean, you play her like a Japanese battleship for mid-ish, longer-ish ranges with the except you spam HE. At least, again, that's what I do. Your mileage may vary. Then once I get closer in, a little bit later game, then I swap on over to AP, when I'm constantly engaging targets around 13-ish kilometers in, and she'll do quite well in my opinion. Oh yeah, her AA isn't that great at all, but, big surprise. Woohoo. Go figure, AA isn't that great, right? That's 90% of ships in game at this point. But guys, that's my 2 cents on the Hyuga. Let me know what you guys think about her in the comments down below. If you do have her, do you agree? Do you disagree? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.